Hi guys, welcome to another video. So in this video, we're going to discuss about the execution of a Flask. Okay, in the previous videos, you people would have experienced in how to work with the Django, right? Now in this video, we're going to see how we can work with the Flask. Okay, for that, let us create a Python file as usual, and let me keep it in here. Okay, it's a new folder. Let me put today's date 04/03/2022. And then I'm going to put my Flask, say Python underscore Flask underscore March underscore 04. Try to always create a file name in the structure so that file name will not get coincident with that of your library. You should always keep this in mind. Click save. That's it. We have done with the file creation. Now what is the important thing? We need to import the corresponding library, which is a Flask. So Flask is the corresponding library that we're gonna execute our microservices, or we're gonna create our microservices. Okay. Now, as we seen in the Django as well, right? To run any application or to run certain services, you need to select file for which you're gonna run. So I'm gonna select my own file. So let me create an object. App is an object that I'm creating where I'm gonna use method called Flask, Flask in a capital letter. Inside that, I'm going to put this syntax. You know this, right? In Python, a name that has underscore on the left hand side as well as on the right hand side. In fact, a double underscore on left and right hand side is what we call it as an attribute. And this corresponding name attribute tells you that this code will gonna consider the current file. Okay, current file and then Flask underscore Python underscore Flask underscore March04. So your application is running on this file. Okay, the routing and everything will happen on this specific file. Okay, that's it. Now, what is the important step? You need to make sure that you set this configuration. I already told you, right? The Django and Flask is all about the configuration that you are setting it up. Okay, because they have a default template. Only thing that you have to do is that configure that. The first thing that I'm configuring here, debug mechanism. Debug is equal to true. So what I'm basically, I'm setting my debug mechanism into true. That means what? Whenever I do the changes to my current code, that get reflected onto the running services. As of now, I'm not running this specific service. It is just in idle state. So in future, you might be running your services at the parallelly where you may have to do some changes. So just to accommodate these two processes in a parallelism, right, we need to put this debug is equal to true. The same corresponding code you would have seen in Django setting file. There at starting of it, right, you would have experienced one code called debug is equal to true. That is what to do the dynamic changes. Fine. Then I need to make sure that I run this application app.run. I should run this. But now what happens? You are told your class that it is going to consider that your current file as a current file, which is a Python file as a part of the application, and you're going to run that. But when it runs, right, at which function the routing should happen? You need to mention that. So I'm going to mention a function. Def home. Generally, you can keep any name, but ideally, when we take training, there, when the example, right, the first method will be always home. This is user-defined method. You can set your own method. You can set your own method. Okay. Next, when we go for API, which we already discussed right now, application program interface. That means what? You're going to consume a API. Consumption of API can be done with two mechanisms, get and post method predominantly. I'm repeating, get and post method is something that we use predominantly. Okay. On top of that, there are a lot of methods. Get, put, post, delete, and lot more methods. But basically, the common two methods we associate ourselves is get and post method. Get method is to just consume the application without even sending any input. Post is to get the API. After getting API, you just give the data back to the API. After the data received in the API will give you the response. This is what we call it as post method. You're giving some input. Sometimes when you deal with a DB related operation inside of Flask, you may have to deal with this kind of a post method. So basically, whenever you set a function, you need to decorate the function with proper routing. Now I'm going to decorate this by, look at this, app at the rate. You know that no? Decorator means onto the function, you do something with the at the rate symbol. So app dot route. So you're telling that you're going to route this function. That means when this application is running, you're going to route this function. At which API? You need to mention here. Now I'm going to mention just a slash. That means what? A empty API. That means IP address colon the port alone. Okay. Next, you need to mention the method which you wanna or which you're gonna give the data into it. So now I'm gonna set this as a get method because, for example, right, I'm gonna keep this specific method as a get method. The user can only consume it. Okay, I did. Now what happened is that you're telling that somebody hit a website. What website? You know it, right? Generally application runs on this IP only, and Flask runs with the 5000. So basically when you run this program, this will happen. Slash slash 127.0.0.1 colon 5000. When you hit this website, it will come back to this run method. Run will go to any method that has a routing. So it will come here, and if my IP is like this, then it is an empty route. So it will come to this method and it will see, okay, this guy has given a get method. So now as a developer, I need to tell what kind of thing that this function should do. So return, because it should return the response, right? Return a normal response. Welcome to my programming. Okay, this is what it is. Now, whenever you run a Flask and Django kind of application, it is always advised that you run on your PyCharm. If not, at least run on your command prompt. How do you run in the command prompt? Let me show that to you. Okay. This is the current folder, and look at that. Select the path, cmd space python slash that. If you put tab, it will display all the files. Okay. Since I have only one file, it is directly projecting that. Okay. For somebody's system, right, this Python as a prefix is not needed. You can directly run your Python file. For some cases, you may have to enter the software language space followed by the application name. When you run, look at that. It started your application. It is creating the environment and it is working on the WG. We already seen it is the layer to connect your application and the server. Okay, and debug mode is an on. Okay, debugger is active state. That means whatever you write the code and the code comes up with error, the debugger will catch the error. Okay, now you couldn't see the specific IP where it is running, but usually that runs on 127. Okay, look at it. You wait for some time. It should work. If not, what you can do parallelly instead of wasting a time, let me open that PyCharm. Network issue. Okay. So let me run in PyCharm parallel so that you'll understand. Look at that. Let me open this terminal. This is the terminal. Give me some second, people. Let me open that again. Okay, wait for some time because yeah, now I'm gonna run this. Okay, now as is the same issue. I need to set the interpreter here. So settings, Python interpreter. Okay, it is taking on default one. Okay, treat as a Flask offline. Okay, give me some second. Look at that. It is discovering the basic files to be added along with this Flask application. Okay, once you're done one, you can see this button with the green color icon for running this. You can see at the bottom of it, right? Let me close this then. Let this create a file. Look at that. It's now updating the skeleton, the basic essential part. Let us wait for 2 minutes. Yes. Now when I run, look at that. It got hosted. So let me copy this and paste it in the browser. Look at that. Whatever I've given in the form of text is returning here. So this is what the basic way of running your Flask file. I repeat, this is the basic way to run your Flask file. Okay. Now, like with the Django, right now it is running with the 127. If you want this to be run on your some other IP, you can do that, and also you can change the port of it. That we'll see later. Okay. Now, whatever we see is a normal application. The application that runs with the content of text, written of some text content, right?